Hello and welcome to Friday, everybody. Welcome to There's No Crying in Crochet. We are the podcast where we bring your everyday frustrations in crochet and we hope to give you some answers. This week, we are going to be talking about granny squares again, but let's go ahead and take care of some business while we're here. And if you are watching us on YouTube, wait, first, oh, wait, let's go back. Hi, I'm Biz from Bizzy Crochet. Hi. Sorry, this is my good friend.
And I'm Deb from MadameStitch.
Okay, let's go now. So if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you follow Busy Crochet and Madame Stitch Crochet, and because we're constantly trying to update our channels and bring you more content, and we appreciate you being there with us. And if you are streaming on Facebook, make sure that you give StreamYard the permission to see your name so we can see your name so that we know who's showing up in chat. We love talking with you guys. And we're going to just bounce right into our topic this week. It's been a funky week, guys. So this week's topic is going to be about granny squares in the home. And August is kind of granny square month because yesterday was Granny Square Day. Tell us about that. What did you do?
Oh my gosh, my favorite day of the year. Yes, I love Christmas. I love the other holidays, but Granny Square Day is kind of my jam. And as it so
Jam.
happens, 12 years ago, my younger grandson was born on Granny Square Day.
Oh,
So
how
there's a
fun.
double blessing. And the triple blessing is that the kid adores my Granny Square designs.
Oh,
He's like my biggest cheerleader. So
he
he
was made for
waits,
Granny Square Day.
I know, he waits every year for to see what I've come up with for his birthday.
Oh,
We've
how
had
fun.
things like a tooth fairy pillow. We've had um, an armadillo, but he's gaga over armadillo. So I did a sea to sea, a corner to corner armadillo surrounded by granny stitch all the way around.
Oh,
He loved that. We've done pillows. We've done oh, what else have we done? Oh, a couple years ago, I used some scrap yarn I had and made a tissue box cover with a face and a tail of an armadillo. Who knew? I don't do amigurumi, but I did for Gabe. It was great.
aw.
So
Look at you
we had a
showing
great
your
time.
love.
Yeah, we had a great time yesterday celebrating getting his this year's design. And we kidnapped him and took him out to breakfast. So
And
it
you
was
said
great.
he's 13?
He's 12. He
12.
turned
Okay, I was
12
going to say,
yesterday.
yes,
Yeah,
that's right, 12.
yeah, my grandkids are just the best. They just the older one is 14. They support me. They love everything I do. They're not typical preteen and teenager kids.
That's awesome.
They're not telling me that what I do is, "Oh, grandma, really?" They're just
No.
my biggest rah-rah fans. I love it.
Oh, that sounds
Mhm,
awesome. I can't
mhm.
wait until my grandkids are older and stuff like that because I can say I have grandkids now. And she was supposed to show the baby today, but I think they fell asleep. So we're just going to let it be.
You know what?
You
That's
know,
okay.
she's only 2 weeks old. So we'll let it slide this time, right?
But next
Um,
time
yes, next time. All right. So, yeah, we have decided that we are going to talk about granny squares for the month of August because the holiday yesterday, holiday, our holiday.
it's my
Um,
holiday.
it's it's Debbie's favorite holiday. And we are going to this week be addressing the granny square in the home. So the first thing that we're going to really talk about are the benefits of granny squares and what the benefit is to your home. Um, I'm going to let Debbie start with that just because if like I know you've got all kinds of ideas and things and that you think about the granny square in the home. So
I do. It's the funniest thing, though, for many, many years, I didn't decorate my home with anything I made. I was always
mm,
giving away my crochet. So other people have lots of my granny square designs. I don't have so much, but I'm changing that now. But one of the
yeah.
things that I love about the granny square, if you start with a basic granny square and modify it, so I'm a purist, if you haven't gathered that from previous episodes, a traditional basic granny square is a granny square.
Yes.
If it doesn't contain the granny stitch, which is those 3 double crochet worked in a
Mhm,
space or stitch,
mhm.
My opinion, and it's my opinion alone, it isn't a granny square, it's a motif. So
Yeah.
that's the differentiation I come with. So when we're talking today about the granny square in the home, we're talking about the traditional basic granny square or a modification of it. And one
Mhm.
of the things that I love about it is its versatility. I mean, again, you can add stitches to it. You can change colors. You can make it in one color. You can make it small. You can make it big. Think of the blankets that you've seen that take different
Mm,
size granny squares and
yes.
combine them in this like geometric pattern.
Yes. You can have,
Um,
like, a pixelated picture.
exactly. I mean, there's so many things that you can do with a granny square that decorates your home in such a unique way. I just
Yeah,
think they're highly underrated and there's so much innovation that can happen with that granny square that we haven't really even tapped into yet.
yeah. Yeah, one of the first things that you have on your list here is versatility,
Mhm.
and it can be blended in with so many different things, like, you can if you're a blanket maker and you wanna do different kinds of stitches and stuff like that, you can just you could do, like, well, what we did with the memories, and we'll talk about that
Right?
later, but, like, you took regular granny square stitches. She's here, I gotta grab her. This is my new
Oh,
grandbaby.
she is asleep.
Yes, she is. She's always out. Um, but and Dugu, you want to poke your head in here? This is my kid. This is the one that made her. Come over more.
There
She looks
you
just
are.
like me. So, yes, we have baby fever in this house, and we get our fix every single day. And I love it. But anyway, back to the granny squares. Like what we had done with the memories blanket, where we just created a series of them together, and then we built off of that. But we still I love the country feel of that blanket, because I think that
Mhm.
while it fits in everywhere, it always brings us back to kind of that very comfortable emotion that it brings forth.
Right, it's very nostalgic and very, uh, evokes those memories that we have, and that's on the list, warmth and comfort. You
Mhm.
don't just have to do a granny square blanket to get the feeling of warmth,
Mhm.
not from it draped over you, but just it adds this touch of
It
cozy
does.
to your
It
home.
does. There's really an emotion that comes with a granny
Mm.
square.
I think so. A lot of us learned to crochet, practiced and perfected our craft
Mhm.
by making granny squares because 'cause they're just the perfect do it over and over again, and you get
Mhm.
those 10,000 hours in, and you have a
Right.
skill that you're good at. Um, they're not the easiest thing to start with, but once you get the hang of them, they're great, and I just love what they add to the home, the look of the
Mhm.
home.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely, and it's like you had kinda said it we all kind of learned there, and when I was getting back into crochet, my husband's grandmother happened to be up for a visit, and, she's the one that retaught me how to do a granny square, and she passed away, like, a year later from, lung cancer. It was a very quick and sudden thing, and, so when she was being buried, we put some granny squares in her casket with her just because,
Oh my
you know,
gosh.
I
That's
was
so cool.
well, just every time I see a granny square, I think of grandma. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
the same. Yeah, and we actually talked about this in a previous episode, the sustainability of making granny squares, because
Mm,
we're both of us are big into using scraps to bring together, a granny square. I posted something in my Facebook group this week about granny squares. There was a quote, and I can't quite remember what that quote was,
mm,
but what I wrote about it was that granny squares are a wonderful way to bring memories together to
yes,
create
yeah.
a new one, and that's exactly what we did with our memories blanket, but you can take those yarn scraps from previous
Mhm.
projects, think
Yeah.
about who you gave them to, who you made them
Yeah.
for, and it becomes this walk down memory lane at the same
You
time it's
get to
decorating
relive
your
all
house.
of that, yes.
And which is such a cool thing to do.
It really is.
The only other thing that I had on my list was aesthetic appeal. We talked
Mhm.
about the nostalgia of it. It gives your home a little bit of a retro feel, although if you modernize the colors and
Yep.
the design of the granny square, add some stitches to it, you bring it into the present. So it has kind of that old and new feel to it.
Yeah, I mean, because I think every granny square blanket kind of has that. You look at it and you go, "Oh, that's homey." Except
Mhm,
that, like you said, when you put those fresh colors into it, I think it's become like the bougie thing to do now.
mhm.
Everybody's got to have a granny square something in their house,
Yeah, it's the
and it
thing.
it has been so modernized, and everybody's wearing it. And we talked about that last week, and everybody's using the stitch, and it's just become this thing again that it's almost as much modern as it is retro anymore.
Mhm. Absolutely. If you think about the TV shows, there are several TV shows that have granny square blankets
Mhm,
hanging over the back of the couch. Like Big
mhm,
Bang Theory, there's a blanket that sits on the couch in
mhm,
well, it kinda goes from, Amy's apartment to Penny's apartment. It's kind of in several different apartments.
uh-huh,
Roseanne's another one that always had that
yep,
the black blanket with all the granny squares in it.
mhm.
And I doubt if many of our listeners are Stranger Things fans. I am. And it was set in the '70s and
Yes,
'80s,
80s, yep,
and there is crochet everywhere in
everywhere.
every home in that house.
Yes,
The ripple granny, it yeah. So you
it's
see it
everywhere,
even
yep.
still in yeah.
That's funny. Because I was thinking about the fact that, oh gosh, there was something that you said, and now it just went off my brain. Because I was reading the comments. Hi, everybody. I haven't chit-chatted in here, and I apologize. Hi to everybody that is here today. Dawn in Carolina, and
Neve.
Neva's here. Yes, thank you
Mhm,
so much, everybody, for just being here and saying hi. Appreciate it so much. But yeah, oh, Roseanne, that's what it was. When you were talking about Roseanne, I really feel like, especially back in that time frame, it was 80s when that TV show was on, and it was coming off of the 70s, and the Granny Square had this stigma of being hippie or like
mhm.
a poor person's
Yep,
decoration, right?
yep.
And
Mhm.
now it's become the thing. And so like it just goes right back to that thing where I said it's as much retro as it is modern anymore. Like
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah, yeah, I love
because
that.
the famous people are making them famous.
Yeah, exactly. Taylor Swift. Yeah,
We're just gonna name drop real quick.
I know.
Alrighty. So let's see. Let's go on. I forget I have control of this stuff. All right. Let's talk about some innovative ways to use the granny squares in your home. There's just endless ways of using granny
There are
squares.
endless ways, and, we start with we all know granny square blankets and things like
Right.
that, right?
Yeah.
But I was doing a little research, and these are some interesting things that came up. Granny square lampshades. Everyone's seen them,
So
right? Making the
cute.
granny squares. When they, made their appearance on the scene in the '60s and '70s, they had beads hanging from them, fringe, and all
Mhm,
of that kind of stuff. If you want a little vintage vibe, do a lampshade with beads
mhm.
hanging from it. It's a great thing to put in your bedroom. Um, Another one is, have you ever seen, kitchen curtains in granny squares?
Yes. Granny
Mhm.
squares and the motifs, but I love the granny square
Yep.
ones.
Yep, those are super simple to put together, and if you have a small window in your kitchen like I do, it's a no-brainer to
Mhm.
put a granny square something in front of the window that just kinda
Yeah.
gives it a little spiff.
Yeah. Well, and they
Um
let the light through, so you're not losing
Mhm.
anything by putting them up there.
Right, I love that. Um, Curtain tiebacks, so you can just
Yes.
make a strip of granny squares, matches the decor of the room, the colors of the room, put a chain loop on them, and wrap them around the curtain and pull them back. Use them like a tie back. They're
Mm.
great for that.
Great way to bring accent colors into your home.
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially if you are real heavy on your neutrals, because that's very popular. But some people just don't like to have a lot of screaming color, and so they
Mhm.
avoid things like that. But great way to bring in accent colors.
Exactly. Now here's one that you've done,
Hmm.
plant pot covers.
Yes, they're fun to do, and they just dress
Mhm,
it up. They can be indoor or outdoor. You can choose cotton, or I don't choose cotton because I don't like it when it soaks up into the cotton when I water my
mhm,
plants.
mhm.
But I usually use, acrylic for that, and then outside, I don't care if they get yucky, I can just throw them in the washer.
Yeah, well, if you use the acrylic, that stretches a little bit more, so you have a better chance of fitting around the pot since they're
That
not
too, yes.
straight up and down, you can, stretch it a little bit, whereas cotton is unforgiving.
Yeah.
One of the things that, I have never done, but I've actually tech edited a pattern for someone who just did this was chair seat cushions or ottoman covers.
I think that's a
Um,
great idea.
yeah, I mean, the only thing about that for me is, okay, I'm gonna get a little indelicate, but I'm not really sure I want my rear and my feet on my granny squares, but that's a personal preference kinda thing. So, if
Uh-huh.
you don't mind sitting on or having your feet on granny
Yeah.
squares, then those are great options for you.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm sorry, I don't
I
know.
never
I've thought
honestly
about
never
doing a
gave that a
cushion to sit
thought.
on, but I can't sit on my granny squares.
Well, I guess it would depend on what material it was made out of and how and see, I don't think I would have a problem sitting on it because it's no different than wrapping a blanket around you. The feet thing, I wonder if it would wear out faster.
Well, okay, that one probably is no big deal either because you're a blanket touches all of those things as well. I mean,
Yes.
it's just a personal weird thing that I have.
Okay, so it's the same thing as me, having a problem this is just my personal preference, with people who don't wear full coverage bathing suits because, like, people you sitting on stuff. Okay, that's all I gotta say.
And we digress.
Don't we? Quickly. Like,
You
my
really
brain just
wanna
goes,
know how we
"Whoo, flying
ask
over
us a
here."
question, we'll tell you exactly how we feel. That's how this goes. I
Okay,
have
moving right
never done
along.
this next one, but I think it's a fabulous idea, and you're gonna see a couple of these in the, roundup that we put together,
Yes.
are wall hangings and tapestries. I think I need to do that because we have a wall. My mother years ago had given me some weird rug to hang on this space that I've got that I have a split level. So where the staircase is, there's this big empty wall. You can't
Uh-huh.
really reach it, but it's a really great decorative place, which I've
Sure.
not decorated because I'm not a decorator. But that drew so much dust and became such an eyesore that I took it down when we painted. But I'm
Okay.
thinking a wall hanging in granny squares that what you were talking about, putting them together in a
Mhm.
color,
Excellent.
make a
Yeah.
picture out of them,
Yeah.
might be a fun way to decorate that wall.
That would be cute. Then you
Mhm.
could do just a couple of textured squares if you have a tree with some little my brain's already going
Oh,
there.
well, we're designing our next projects, which we
Yeah,
don't
right?
need more
I know.
to do, because 'cause we've got lots. Anyway, and this one is a common one, table runners and placemats,
Yes. Yes.
right?
That is really common. It's because it's so easy. Such an
Mhm.
easy way to quickly decorate your house.
And may I just say, I have attempted you'll see one of my, placemats later in the presentation. When I was making that, I thought, "Oh, I love to make granny squares. This is great." It takes a lot of granny squares per placemat, and if you need 8 like I do, then that's a get that's a gajillion little granny squares. So, may I just say, make your granny square a little bit bigger so you don't have to make quite so many for
Yeah,
your
because it
placemat.
definitely depends on how dedicated you are to your
Yeah.
project. I will say that I made a scarf from my niece, and it required me to do 2 by 2
Oh,
granny squares, and this was
oh,
in this was in DK yarn, okay?
Oh,
So oh,
ouch.
yeah, there was 8,000,000 of them, and I had to form it so that it made a zigzag so that in between the granny squares, it zigzagged. You this is why I'm
What?
saying you have to be dedicated to your project if you're going to
Yeah,
make the really
yeah.
little
I
ones.
mean, I can make the same granny square 1,000 times. I am not kidding you. I will do it till the day I die,
Right.
but then I have to put them all together.
Yes.
So, there's a thing.
We are gonna
There's
be talking a little bit about that in a little bit
yeah.
too.
Now, this is one that I had not really thought about. We have blankets and things in our, roundup, and I always think of a full blanket
Uh-huh.
as being something that you would throw on the bed. But I remember very clearly, my grandmother would have just a rectangle that sat across the end of the bed to decorate it, but it was
Uh-huh.
usually a quilt,
Mhm.
but they call it a bed scarf. So you can
Why?
put it I don't well, it's kinda like a scarf. It doesn't really function like a full blanket. But here, think about this. You could drape it around across the end of the bed
Uh-huh.
widthwise and decorate it that way, or you could move it up to the middle of the bed, so you've got your pillow shams and things like that.
Uh-huh.
Drape it around, across the middle of the bed and do
Uh-huh.
something really kind of innovative with it.
I agree, and so I'm thinking of the usefulness of this thing though, so, like, what is like a foot
Oh,
warmer?
no, it's not useful.
Oh, no, it's not? Does it fall off too easy?
Well, no, no, no. I mean, I don't it's not useful in the sense that you could wrap yourself in it.
Right. Because 'Cause I'm just thinking, like, when you get in, because I know sometimes they used to do the foot warmer, like, the
Oh,
coals and
right.
the thing. So what if
Okay.
that's like a foot warmer, or if you bring it up to the middle, like, some people, they don't want their heads and feet really warm, but their middle needs to be
Mhm.
covered.
Okay.
I'm
There,
thinking,
I agree
yeah.
with you. And
So,
put a little fringe on the short ends so that it hangs over the
yeah,
bed. Okay, another design idea for
yeah.
the Madam Stitch inventory. All right, we're
Yes, the
good.
granny square girl, you're gonna have it going.
All right, now you haven't done granny square storage baskets, but you've done
Mm-mm.
storage baskets, right?
Yes, yes, I like
Yes.
making storage baskets, they're fun. Now they have to be sturdy.
Mhm.
So I have a tendency to go with a thicker yarn, the bulky stuff, big fat stitches where they kind of stand up on their own. Like you
Right.
said, I haven't done a granny square one, so I'm not sure how I would tackle that, honestly, because my brain goes, "Oh, you're gonna need to sturdy that with some plastic canvas or something like that, maybe
Yeah.
in between your granny squares." So it's
Or
a
you
thought.
could just use it as decoration around the top
For sure, yes. Yes, you could just
where
decorate
you're not
baskets
worried
that
about
you
that.
have.
Right, and I'm thinking that if you use those sturdy stitches around the basket,
Mhm,
the granny squares are not gonna stand up on their own,
mhm,
but they could fold over
mm,
and decorate the top, so you'd have to
for
make the body
yeah,
of it a
definitely.
little bit higher. So I
Yeah,
think
that would
that
be cute.
that's an interesting
Like
design.
making a collar on a basket almost.
Mhm, exactly.
Cute.
How many of us now you may not have this because you live in the tropical clime that is Florida,
Yeah.
but those of us who live in the, Northeast would use this and Canada, thinking of Neve,
Yeah.
use draft stoppers.
Yes.
So you
And
get
when I
that
was in
really
Wisconsin, we did as well.
yeah, right, so you could do I've seen now this is not a traditional granny square, but one that I've seen used a lot is the African flower motif,
Mhm,
and that one makes a great, draft stopper. With a
mhm,
granny square, because of the holes,
mhm.
you would probably need to do a tube that's stuffed and then put the granny squares over the top of that so that you
Yeah,
had something to stop the draft.
yeah, definitely. You could either do like a Muslim, or you can find draft dodgers that are already created. They're already made, they're already sewn, and if you just wanna dress it up so it's cute in your
Really?
house,
Oh, that's
you
cool.
can yeah, you can just create a cover for it then, and so now you've got a cute draft dodger.
I forgot they're called draft dodgers. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Um, all right, so Biz, how
Yes.
much do you read? Probably not so much now that you're a grandma with a baby in the house, But when you read, do you read a physical book?
Yes, and actually I started in, I think it was June. Um, I decided I wanted to start reading books again because I had not read for so many years because crochet, it was like my whole life, you know?
Mhm.
And then I thought, no, I need to start reading. And so what I do is in the morning when I'm having my coffee and stuff like that, I read like a chapter from a book. And I have like a pile of like six of them behind me that I'm just working through a chapter at a time. So, but I've never, and I think I know where you're going with this.
Uh-huh.
I've never made a cover for one of my books.
Right, so I actually gave my daughter, a tote, which I'm getting ready to turn into a book cover, and I think that's a great way to decorate your side table. You're
Yes.
reading a book, either with a granny square bookmark. Now I would use thread
Mhm.
or fingering weight yarn so it doesn't, hurt the book spine,
Uh-huh.
but a bookmark or a book cover that when you're not reading the book, it's decoration on your side table.
Now, would you make one where like the cover slides into a sleeve, or would you make it kind of like a little I'm gonna call it a book purse where it has a little flap that comes over that it protects the book because then you can also use that when you're throwing your book into your bag
Mhm.
when you're running to the gym or when you're going to go pick up the kids or it would protect your book from because every once in a while, you know, you find yourself and your book is all like opened up and your bookmark fell out because you threw something in on top of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I would do any of those. So either, a full on slide it in and put a flapper over it. You
Mhm.
could do one that has again, this one I think you would have to use thinner yarn, but you could use one that has a little flap that's
Mm,
sewn down that you slide the book into that can kinda saves your place, or just the cover of the book. Like if you have a library book or something, you could
right.
slide it into that. And I've also seen where, um, you just do a rectangle and you wrap it around the book with a really pretty tie
Oh, yeah,
that
mhm.
ties it together so that it's just,
Protect it.
free and easy, but it protects
Yeah.
the cover. Yeah,
Cute
2
ideas.
things. And of course, pillow shams or pillows or whatever, throw
Mhm,
pillows,
absolutely.
that goes anywhere you want in the house, not the kitchen, but hey,
Pretty much
you
everywhere
do
else.
you.
Okay,
So
so maybe not the kitchen, but maybe the dining room,
maybe,
maybe.
yeah,
You wouldn't
but if
sit on it.
I would not sit on it, so there's the rub. Yep.
Oh my goodness, terrible. You've got a couple of other ideas in here, like pet bed cover.
Mhm,
I know that there are people who make blankets and things like that that will go to shelters so that
mhm.
the animal has something soft to sleep with. They're great for using up your scraps for that kind of thing.
Yep,
Or if you have a bed, you know, at home and you have a pet, it's cute. Make matching one for your couch and your pet bed.
yep, I have done that. It's a little creepy sometimes, but I have done that. I'm not a dress my Princess Daisy up in clothing, but that's the closest I get is there's
Yeah,
your blanket. So,
yes, and they love them too.
they do.
All right. So next thing we're gonna quick talk about are some tips for choosing colors in your home decor as far as your granny squares are concerned.
Right, so, this is the proof in the pudding, the versatility of your granny square. Biz and I were talking before we started this episode that, one of the trends in coloring for your home is to do neutral everything. It might be
Yes.
gray, it might be beige, it might be,
Mhm.
um, light blue or something like that that's just monochromatic, and granny squares are a great way to add a pop of color. You could even
Mhm.
match that granny square to the monochromatic, color tones of your home just in degrees, or add a pop of color according to your taste, and it
Mhm.
just kinda brings the room to life.
If I'm not incorrect, and I might be, I think the term that they use is color drenching, where
Is
like
it?
everything in the room, the woodwork, the doors, the walls, the ceiling, everything is the same color. And that's like the big
That's
new thing happening now. So
Ooh.
yeah, so when people use like this really rich, deep color, it's not just about having an accent wall anymore. It's about the whole room has
Right.
that full vibe to it.
Yeah, I have seen that in commercials. Yeah, that would be a red or a deep blue would be a little too intense for me, but,
Yeah, me
you know,
too.
I'm thinking about those soft neutrals rather than
Mhm.
neutral,
Yeah. And
but,
I know that what's the word? Wallpaper. Wallpaper is becoming extremely popular again. Can you imagine
oh
having
gosh.
a granny square printed wallpaper? How much fun that
Oh
would
my
be?
gosh. Okay. Yeah, I went through a wallpaper phase, and I was really good at putting it up by myself, and I no, I don't wanna do that anymore, but I can see where that
Yeah.
could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, where the accent wall has stopped being paint, it's now become like wallpaper.
Yeah, yeah. Not quite as big a commitment, but adds some interest to your room.
Yeah. But yeah, I
Another
would love to see somebody have a wallpaper with granny squares. That would be a lot of fun.
well, I would take on that mantle, but I think I'm gonna pass on that. There might be a mutiny in my home if there were granny squares everywhere, which we're approaching. Um,
Oh,
so
so
I
funny.
one of the things that I was thinking about, we're always mentioning that yarn stash, that yarn collection,
Yes.
and that's how do you use your yarn stash to create something in your own home? So you kinda have to
Mhm.
look at it and say, "These colors might match, these might not," and put those together in a way that work in your home, but shop your collection first before you go shopping
Yes.
somewhere else.
Yes. I always do, especially when I'm trying to get an idea out of my head,
Mm,
into fruition. I'll always go into my stash first, but just even gift giving, it's a really great way for you to, um, you and I've had a couple of different conversations about being a really good steward about what you have. And
right.
we're about trying to reduce our waste on a personal level. So if you can shop your stash first, even when you're looking at just doing granny square designs in your house, every little bit matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just kind of look at the general color scheme of the room or the home where that granny square object,
Mhm.
whatever it is going to live, and
Mhm.
just make sure that it fits the vibe of the
Yeah.
room or the decor of the home.
Yeah, and one of the best things that you can do is, even if you've got some crazy colors, if you can throw that neutral in there to kind of give those crazy colors a home.
Mhm.
Because when you and I know that back in the 70s, they just threw all of it together. It didn't matter what colors went together,
Yeah.
right? And then they wore it like that. But I think now it's become more popular to kind of offset the crazy colors with that neutral tone, whether it's a gray, a brown, a black, a white, an off-white, whatever. It gives your eye a rest, somewhere for your eye to rest. I think the hardest thing about the crazy color granny squares that people just hated so much about it, it was too much. It
Yeah.
was too much activity, too
It
much
was psychedelic.
yeah, your eyes and your brain had nowhere to rest. And that's really what we're trying to create by using a neutral with all of our other crazy
Mhm.
colors.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And you've got some tips for joining granny squares when making them for the home.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, for decorative purposes, think about the joining method as like the border is as well,
Mhm.
as a design element rather than just a way to get the squares together. So, for
Mhm.
instance, one of our favorite joining methods is the slip stitch seam,
Mhm.
which provides an opportunity for a strip of color to be put between the granny squares that either matches the granny squares or matches the decor.
Right.
Um, you've used a braided join before, haven't you?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, you and I are working on a project right now that's going to be coming up in the next couple of months. And in that project, we're using it's called the zigzag, but it looks like a braid. And that's one of the joinings that I'm using there.
There's also the one that uses just, chains. So you
Mhm.
chain, fasten, chain, fasten, chain,
Yep.
fasten. It's a join as you go method, so on the next square, you chain around one of the loops and then do the same thing all the way upside the square.
Mhm.
It joins your, squares together while providing this really nice open work look between the
Mhm.
squares. It gives it a little bit more delicacy, I
Mhm.
think. Yeah.
And I'm gonna say one of the best places to look up different joining methods. We don't really have the capability at the moment to show you all of the different ones, but go to YouTube and look up crochet joining or joining squares for crochet, because there are a bazillion different videos that can show you different methods, and
Mhm.
far more than what even we use. Because I know one of your favorites is mattress stitch, mine is whip
Mhm.
stitch. We use the zigzag stitch, the single crochet. There's all kinds of different ways to join your granny squares, to make them pop or look a specific way. But I would familiarize myself with a bunch of them and then choose the one that I like the best.
Yeah, exactly. Even if the project if you bought a pattern, you can always change the way things are joined together if the
Hmm.
size isn't as much of an issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we have a little presentation for you. Miss Debbie was kind enough to put this together for us today.
We just thought it would be fun for you to see some examples of what's out there in the universe. Now, I did get a few submissions that were not really granny squares. They were squares, they were projects made in squares. I did not include them because I wanted to stay as close to the basic granny square as possible, because that's what
Yeah,
we're really talking about today.
yeah, because we are going to be having a conversation later in the month about
Mhm.
granny squares and motifs. So we'll bring it back in at that time. But
Yeah,
for this week, it's about the granny square.
about the granny square.
All righty, let's start.
Oh, we start off with Biz.
Well, mine is the first one on the left. We're going to talk about places, things that we've gathered for living room, family room, bedroom, different ideas that you can use. The vintage Christmas cushion cover that I have, it's free on on my blog, and this is the back side of it. But you could make the other side a full granny square as well. The other side it matches the vintage Christmas blanket.
Mhm.
Then we've got a wall hanging here, the Running Rings Around Granny wall hanging by Cozy Rosie. Oh, the second one is also hers as well.
Yeah, Fiona has she has a collection of running
Mhm.
rings around Granny, different things that fit into that category, and so these are 2 of hers.
That's fun. And so it looks like there's a pillow cover and she's got a wall hanging as well.
Mhm.
But that gives you an idea of what a granny square is going to look like up on your wall.
Yeah,
That one's got a very boho feel to it.
yeah. Then your traditional granny square blanket.
Mhm.
She's chosen 2 different colors for the granny square proper, and then, the big color is that, camel color.
Mhm. I like
But
that.
there are many different ways you can, change up the colors to make that look different.
I really like what Melanie Jane did with that X's and O's wall hanging. It's very I forgot I can make this bigger. Oh yeah, I really like that. That's different.
Mhm.
She's taken different motifs, but she's used a traditional granny in the center of the squares.
Right.
That's a cute idea. I really
She's
like
got
that.
Yeah, I really like the way that's put together, and because those edges of the squares aren't
Mhm.
really square, she
Right.
uses the circles, which are actually done in granny stitch, to
Okay.
connect them. Yeah.
That's a great idea. I like that. And it uses that same granny square, but makes it something different. It's
Mhm.
got a very unique look to it. And then the granny square baskets, how you were talking, like I like how Hortense did the difference. Like she didn't rely on the granny square to hold up the basket itself.
Although I will say I did look this one up. She used, a really small hook
Okay.
with a thicker yarn and
Okay.
shorter stitches
Okay.
to get it to be compact even in the granny squares.
More sturdy. Sure.
Mhm.
Okay. That makes sense. That's a good thing to note.
Oh, look at
Alrighty.
that one.
Isn't that cute?
So many granny squares. Now, you'll notice in Rafaela's, blanket that it's part granny square, part granny stitch. She's really done a good job of innovating the way she's using her granny stitch and granny
Yeah.
square. There's a mitered square, which we used in our memories blanket, a traditional one, couple of traditional ones. She used
Mhm.
circle to square,
Mhm.
straight rows. I mean, that's just a really innovative way.
The granny stitch
Mhm.
diamond
Mhm.
stitch. Yep,
Yep.
there's so much here. I love her innovative ways of she's always got the most interesting stuff.
She does have a lot of granny square stuff.
Yeah. I love the hot bottle water
Isn't that
cover.
cool? Right now, this
Water
isn't,
bottle.
a traditional granny square, right?
Mhm.
It's a round in granny stitch, but I included it because you can see how the granny stitch itself can be used for color work.
Sure, that's a great idea. I like that. And that is this glasses case and
Mhm.
bookmark. I was actually just thinking about making myself a glasses case. That's cute. It's a cute idea.
Yeah, I like that too.
All right. Okay, and moving right along, we've got is this your fireside throw? Oops. Whoop, wait, come back.
Yeah, yeah, well, being the person who's obsessed with granny squares, I better have some granny square stuff to show for it, right? But the
Yeah.
fireside throw, doesn't have all granny squares in it. It's a blanket I designed a couple of years ago that has 6 different squares that use 6 different, stitches. So it's got
Okay.
alpine stitch, plaid, star stitch in there, but all of it is warm me by the fireside kind of theme. But you'll
Yeah.
see the granny square is actually a popcorn granny square,
Oh, that's cute.
that has white center, then light blue, and then dark blue.
So did
And
you then
so
take that square and start is that what you did with your pillows?
yeah, so these
Okay.
are the pillows that I designed for my grandson. You can't see the back side of it. The back side of those pillows is corner to corner,
Okay.
and on the I Love Football pillow, it's a picture it looks like a football. It's not a picture of a football, it's just the brown with the
The striping.
seaming, right?
Yes. Sure. Yeah.
And then the baseball pillow is white corner to corner with the red seams of the baseball, like you see with the baseball in
Love
the
it.
and the deal is that with these, you find out what your team's, colors are. So for the
Uh-huh.
Eagles, it's that teal green,
Mhm.
black, and white are those
Sure.
colors. For the Phillies, it's red, white, and blue because we're in the birthplace of independence.
Right.
So there you are. And you customize it with the colors of your team.
Yeah, that's a great way to that's that's a great way to actually talk about colors in a granny square as far as using them to really highlight something in particular like a team colors or
Mhm.
and because of the fact that it's done row by row by row by row, you can do so much with it.
Yeah.
It's not where you're stuck.
Traditional granny square, in the granny square accent pillow, the black that you see is a round of single crochet,
Okay.
and then another round the white is the main color of the pillow, so then you do a round of, granny stitch again
I
in
like how that
white.
sets off that inner
Yep,
square.
yep, and then one of my favorites is this sideways granny.
Okay.
Basically 4 granny squares that are folded around the edges of the pillow and then seamed with slip stitch seam or single crochet, I can't remember which one I used, to give it that ridge, and then I put pom-poms
Cute.
for fun,
Oh, I like it. I love
just
the
for fun.
pom-pom edging.
Yeah, and then your basic granny square becomes a garden posy. In
Mhm.
this one, I did the first 2 rounds in the flower color, and the next round in the main color of the blanket, I dipped down to the first round of,
Oh.
granny stitch and pick it up. So it gives it that flower look, that
Cute.
flower petals.
I was wondering how you did that. I'm like, did she change colors on the? Because I hate changing colors on a
I
granny
did
square.
not. I hate changing colors on. No, that was just I dipped down for that middle stitch of the granny stitch that sits
Yeah,
over the space
I love
and
that.
pulled it up. Yeah,
Cute. Great idea. All right, so
and
this is
here
the
we are.
memories blanket we were talking about.
Yeah, so you see strips of granny square variations in that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And but you did do that was the one on the bottom was, oh, help me with the word,
The
mitered.
mitered, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
That
you
one's
actually included the granny stitch in every single one of those squares, didn't you?
that's what makes it a granny square in my opinion. Yes, so all of
Yeah.
them have even the one that you can see, gosh, um, the one that you can see in your blanket that looks like it starts with a circle
Yeah,
is
the flower one.
actually it's granny stitch on the outside of it.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, fun. Well, and you've got some really fun collaborations that you do every year with the granny stitch,
I
but we'll talk
do.
about that in a minute.
Yeah. All right, the dining room. So
Cute.
placemats. Carmen of Annie Design Crochet has done these really pretty
Those are cute.
daisies. Now that gets dangerously close to being a motif, but you'll notice that that last round has 3 double crochet worked into the space.
Right,
There's your
right.
granny stitch.
Okay.
And of course, our mug cozy.
Mhm. Looks like she uses the join as you go method on that one.
Yep.
So not only does it work up fast because the squares are small, but it works up fast because you're like putting it together as you're making
Yeah,
it.
that's a great stash buster.
Hmm.
And then the table runner. Now she has this draped over a spinet piano, but
Hmm.
you could use this for your dining room table easily.
Sure. And see, the beauty of that is just by your color choices, you can do spring, you can do Christmas, you can do fall, you
Mhm.
can do Easter, you can
Yep.
do all of it.
All the seasons. Here's me. There's
Here's
that
you.
granny square. Now, again, I started with a circle,
Uh-huh.
excuse me, and built out to the granny square.
Right.
So those are granny squares. And then I did a mug cozy and cup cozy and a coaster set that all uses the granny stitch or granny square.
Cute. Great ideas.
Again, a great stash buster
Mhm. Ooh,
for
I
the
like this.
kitchen.
These are
Yeah, I
cute.
have a Sunny Days collection. Now, that's the pot holder that I have there is in
Mhm.
2 panels because that would be basically useless with 1 panel.
Yes,
The
it
heat
would.
would go right through it, you try to pick up the pan, you're done for. So what I did on the opposite side is a solid there are no holes in it at all. It's just a
Mhm.
solid circle into solid, square
Yeah,
to add give added protection.
that's awesome.
And
And
then
then
the falling
the
petals.
falling petals one, I like how she did it in the two-tone, so it
Yep.
really is kind of the same as your Sunny Days pot holder. It's just because you could do the same thing with the Sunny Days one, you could just do an opposite color to make
Yeah.
that design really stick out.
Yeah, I love it almost looks like she has overlay
Mhm.
stitches in it, doesn't it? It's
It
really
does.
pretty.
That is very cute. Alright, it looks like that is the end of our
That
presentation.
is it.
And now I've got to figure out how to get us back to normal.
We're tiny tiny to big.
Oh, so, yeah. So I hope that we've given you guys some stuff to think about as far as the granny square in your home. It is
Mhm.
such a versatile thing to use. I know that you have something planned for next week that is going to work with some of the problems that we
Yeah.
find in granny squares.
Right, so for our crochet skills class, episode this month, because we're doing granny squares all month, I thought this is going to give me an opportunity to try out an overhead camera and do some
Yeah.
demonstrating. We'll see how this works. Otherwise, it might be me doing this kind of things in front of my face. I don't know. We'll
We
see.
are gonna figure it out.
But we're going to attempt a few different things that really are bugaboos for people who make granny squares. How do you weave in ends in a granny square when you've got one block of 3 double crochet and you want that end to stay in? Um, we were talking about joining, right?
Yes.
Joining was
Yep.
one, and how to change colors
Mhm.
without having you're still gonna have I'm sorry to say, you're still gonna have a million ends to weave in because
Yeah.
I have not mastered that join, and frankly, it makes me a little scared to use it because 'cause I'm so afraid it's gonna pull apart. There's a join, a Russian join or
The Russian
something where
join.
you
Yeah, the
right?
invisible join.
Where it's
I've never
supposed to
made it
not
work.
pull out, and I just can't go there. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you a way to change colors that kinda hides it in the construction of the granny square. So those 3 things we're gonna talk about next week. And then for our final episode of the month, because we love granny squares, we're gonna have the discussion about granny squares versus motifs and
Yeah.
why
Mhm.
why I don't know exactly how Biz feels about it, and I wanna hear her opinion.
Yeah.
I'm open to anything, and I hope you'll all join us and offer your opinion.
Yes.
But I am a purist, as you know, so it'll be interesting to see how excited I get about this subject.
The passion.
Go up for that. It's gonna be a ride.
Yeah.
Um, and then I just wanna put a plug in for my Granny Stitch sampler blanket. So I'm on a mission as Madame Stitch to bring the Granny Stitch, the 3 double crochet worked into the same stitcher space, into the design element world in a way that people see it more as an innovative way to
Mhm.
incorporate the Granny Stitch into our lives.
Yes.
Last year, I had a Granny Stitch sampler crochet along where I
Uh-huh.
invited 11 other designers to make squares where they incorporated other techniques and other stitches into a granny square. We
Mhm.
had a mosaic granny square last year. It was crazy, but it was gorgeous.
Yes.
Um, corner to corner,
Mhm.
granny stitch, all of those kinds of things. Well, I'm doing it again because it was so popular with a combination of old and new designers to the blanket. Biz is a part of it, and I'm just about to make her square, which is so exciting.
Ooh!
So cool. Um, but I'm to keep your eye out for that because it's just a whole month of October where we crochet these squares together. You get to know the designers and
Yes.
why they chose the stitches that they did. And the blanket is absolutely gorgeous. So
Yes.
look
It's
out
a
for that.
great way to learn new stitches too because you get
Mhm.
to do it in little chunks.
Yep.
I love it when people walk away from a project feeling like they've increased their knowledge.
Yep. And this will definitely be one of those. It's aimed for um, advanced to adventuresome beginners to intermediate. I try
Mhm.
not to let things get too wild and crazy, but there are a couple that are going to challenge. So
Yeah. I
that's
hope
just
I'm
the way
not
it
a
goes.
challenge.
Oh, well, I haven't made your square yet, so we'll see. But
Ah, yes. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
no, I think it'll be fine. I've made your stuff before. It's really cool.
So, yeah,
And that's it.
we're gonna have a good time.
Yeah,
Alrighty. So, yes, I think that's what time is it? We're right on time.
we did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So, like we said, I hope you guys have gained some information to take away. If you have any questions, make sure that you reach out to us. We are always on social media in one spot or another.
Right.
So, we will eventually get to your question. You can always email us. You can always leave a comment in the YouTube recording of this. Find it in our playlists. And other than that, you guys have a really amazing weekend.
Make some granny squares.
Yes, yes. Use up your stash. Do big things.